I would just like to begin this video by talking about the channel who the original map belongs to. This is the Milan channel, and he posts his series called The Railways of Crotoonia. Most of the Railways of Crotoonia are child-based videos, however there are some that are available for all ages and have their comments available, and so I usually comment my excuse me. I usually like to comment my original characters, and my original characters don't work for the Crotoonia United Rail, which is the company that all the other Crotoonians work for. So here is the main map of Crotoonia. As you can see down here, there's a lot of empty space down here. There's really a lot of empty space. And the companies that my original characters work for, they don't work for Crotoonia United Rail. They rather work for their own companies, other companies. And so I've made edits to the map. The orange line represents the Westburg, Bardington, and Mountain Railroad, also known as the Mountain Road. The crimson line represents the North Iron Ridge Railroad, the NIR. The indigo line represents the East Mountain Oceanic Railroad, the EM&O. The white line represents the Shadowstone Railway. The purple line represents the Short Line Railroad, the Westburg Switching Company. And finally, the gray line represents the Selgreb City and Killington Port Junction Railroad, another short line, and the only connection between my railroad companies and Crotoonia United Rail. So let's follow the Mountain Road. Here is Killington Port. It's one of the three large ports that the Mountain Road serves, alongside with the North Iron Ridge Railroad. Following the main line, we reach the Killington City Station right here. Killington City is a smaller city compared to Selgreb City, however it is still a large city. This is the Killington City Depot, which is also the Killington City Yard. Just north of Killington City Yard is the Killington City Steel Mill, which is where old scrap metal and raw iron ore is taken to be turned into into steel. Here is Pomeroyton, and the Pomeroyton branch, served by the Mountain Road. Down here is the Clark Lane branch and the small town of Clark Lane. And then here is Westburg, the town of Westburg. This is Westburg Station, and this is Westburg Yards. Now this region right here is known as the Run, because it's where all four of the electric railroads operate side by side. Here is Bardington Yards, and here's Bardington Station. Over here is the Shadowstone Viaduct, which is a long and narrow bridge. It looks wide on the map, but in actuality, the bridge is only one track wide and is used by both the Mountain Road and the Shadowstone Railway. This line right here, this stretch of track is known as the Shadowstone Pass, which the Mountain Road follows alongside the Shadowstone Railway. This little bridge right here is known as Al's Descent, where one of my original characters, Al, suffered a terrible accident and he fell off the side of the mountainside. Continuing to follow the Mountain Road, we eventually reach Cross Village, where there is a crossing point between the Mountain Road and the East Mountain Oceanic Railroad. Now, going down this line, we eventually reach the city of Zinton. Here's Zinton Station, and here is Zinton Harbor, with Zinton Ports down here. Now returning back up here, here is the Bitherton Viaduct Bridge, which crosses over the narrow gauge line, which is of Crotoonia United Rail. The Mountain Road locomotives don't usually interact with the narrow gauge locomotives of Crotoonia United Rail, and so they just pass over. This is the Bitherton branch, and it goes down to the seaside town of Bitherton. Following the main line further, we reach the city of Ellington, where Ellington Station is served by the Mountain Road. However, Ellington Yards is served by the East Mountain Oceanic. Then we reach this stretch of line. This is known as Weston Tunnel. It is the main tunnel on the Mountain Road, and it's also the long tunnel with many curves, and heading from west to east, it is a downhill grade. And here is the small town of Weston. Finally, up here, we reach Laszlo City, with Laszlo City Station, Laszlo Yards, and finally Laszlo City Port. Now that we follow the Mountain Road, let's follow the North Iron Ridge Railroad. The same deal: Killington City Port, Killington City Station, and the Killington Yards. However, what's different is the North Iron Ridge Railroad goes north of this river right here, before the Mountain Road, and here is the small town of Vic. Same deal over here. There is Westburg and Bardington. However, the town of Bardington is where the first main line for the North Iron Ridge Railroad ends, and there's the North Iron Ridge branch, which leads to the small town of North Iron Ridge, and then finally the North Iron Ridge iron mines right here. Iron is taken from the North Iron Ridge, collected at the mine, taken down to Westburg Yards, and then taken all the way back over to the Killington Steel Mill. Anyways, south of Westburg Station, the North Iron Ridge Railroad goes south to this area I call the Roundabout. The town of Davidson, Woolleyville, and Lounsburg, they're all served by the North Iron Ridge, with Lounsburg being a more major city. This area right here is all farmland, and farmers do bring their products to the North Iron Ridge Railroad to collect. Down here is Lounsburg Port right here. So that's the North Iron Ridge Railroad. Next up, we're going to follow the East Mountain Oceanic. The East Mountain Oceanic, same deal, Westburg and Bardington. Then it goes south here. This is called the Valley, and it was here in the valley where another original character of mine perished in a terrible avalanche. Over here is Cross Village, meeting point. Then we go up to the first tunnel. Then we reach Ellington Yards. And then here is the first branch line. We travel down and we reach Lyalltown. And the Lyalltown Port right here. Then here's the second tunnel. Here is the East Viaduct. Then here is the East Mountain Station, which is a very popular stopping point for passenger trains on the East Mountain Oceanic, because there are plenty of hikers who want to go up to East Mountain. Then there is the Laszlo City Station, Laszlo City Yards, and Laszlo City Port. Down here is South Laszlo, which is a smaller town south of Laszlo City, and it's served by the South Laszlo branch. Now let's follow the white line, the Shadowstone Railway. Shadowstone Railway also occupies the run, Westburg and Bardington. It travels along the Shadowstone Pass alongside the Mountain Road. And around here, the Mountain Road passes under the Shadowstone line, and the Shadowstone Railway goes here. This is the major city of the Shadowstone Railway, Fort Shadowstone. Here's their station. Here is the Shadowstone Yards, and up here is the Mount Shadowstone coal mine. here coal is taken from below Mount Shadowstone and taken over to Fort Shadowstone, which then later goes down to these yards over here and then onward. Continuing to follow the main line, we reach Greenbank Hills right here in the small town of Greenbank itself. Here is Greenbank Station. And then finally we reach this tunnel, and at the very end of the Shadowstone Railway, we reach the small village of Witless. Now, the Shadowstone Railway can also be considered an interurban railroad, so there are interurban coaches that operate around here. Now that I've discussed the 4 main electric railroads, let's follow along the short line that is most relevant to the 4 electrics, and that is the Westburg Switching Company. The Westburg Switching Company operates mostly in Westburg area, Westburg Yards and Westburg Station. It also runs down to Clark Lane and Daviston, and that's usually about it. Now over here is the Selgrib City and Killington Port Junction Railroad. This short line railroad right here is the only connection between all of my other railroads and Crotoonia United Rail, which operates up here. Sometimes the Selgrib City and Killington Port Junction Railroad locomotives do occasionally, on rare occasions, do go to the Killington City yards. However, that is on very rare occasions. They usually just pick up small trains over here and then take them over to the Selgrib City Freight Depot or the Crotoonia Mail Company. Like the Crotoonia Mail Company, the Selgrib City and Killington Port Junction Railroad, they do collect mail here and they take it over to the port over here, which then the other railroads here collect and ignore that, and then take it over to here and then along the rest of the line. So ultimately, yeah, these are all the edits that I made to the map. I did add plenty of mountains here and there. And ultimately, this is just my own fan stuff. And Milan, if you are watching this video, I'd just like to say you are doing a good job on your series. However, I unfortunately cannot watch all your videos because I despise YouTube and I just don't like how they're doing crap. Anyways, this is all the stuff that I've done, and I thank you for watching.